Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger writes, and Ty, the Tiger supervisor. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And today, we are doing chapter 14 of A Familiar Death. What? The mongoose asked. Too fancy for you? Marlowe bit off his reply. He was looking at the food on his plate. Jelly had called it a meat cake. He'd served him personally and then stayed there. I'm worried about how much grain is in it, Marlowe said. It wasn't entirely a lie. There was a lot of vegetables. All he'd asked for was food, not this. Vegetables are good for you, Jelly said. Sure, in small quantities. There had to be as much grain on as meat there. 6 layers of vegetables, 6 thick layers. He looked at his lion. Don't you think we might get grain sick from all that? Trembor looked back at him as he brought a forkful to his mouth. Don't look at me like that. Jaylee baked it, so it's going to be good. The mongoose puffed his chest. Marlot frowned. You've only had 2 meals here. How can you be sure? That's it. Jaylee grabbed Marlot's plate. You can go hungry. Wait. He grabbed the mongoose arm, almost making the plate tip over. I was joking. I'm going to eat it. He hadn't been, but he was famished. He wasn't going to go. Yeah, he wasn't going hungry. Even if that meant eating that. Chili eyed him for a moment before putting the plate down. I hear one complaint from you, and I am never feeding you again. I promise I'll only give you praise from now on. To demonstrate, he ate a mouthful, making exaggerated sounds of delight. Chili snorted and left them to eat. Tremor grinned. Does exasperating him give you a thrill you don't get anywhere else? Bottle shrugged. The meat wasn't bad. Pretty good, actually. Slightly sweet, which contrasted the bitterness of the green. He still felt like there was too much of it. He still felt there was too much of it. He was going to throw up at some point. His pad beeped. The Colorado said it was the enforcer from Low Valley. All right, Blackclaw, Marlot answered. This is Carniel. You called yesterday. Ah, yes. Any luck finding traces of the coyote through your territory? No. I spoke to every patroller who's been out over the last 2 weeks. No one saw a vagrant coyote, or any vagrant for that matter. So no missing food, no poaching. I don't know what missing food would get reported unless we're talking a truck full, but vagrants don't need to steal it. One of our cooks always has some ready to give to them. He spent some time as one of them before coming here, so he's always doing what he can to make their lives easier. I checked with him, but no one's come asking for handouts in over a month. Marlowe digested the information. All right, thanks. He put his pad away and tapped his fingers on the table. You better start eating, Jilly called from the kitchen. Marlowe waved the words away. What's wrong? Trevor asked. Marlowe looked at the food. I'm not sure. He forced himself to eat a forkful. The coyote claimed he came from Low Valley's direction, but there are no signs he passed through there. And that's unusual? Marlowe nodded. How did he feed himself? He isn't one of the town folks, so he can't go to the store, and unless he has money, he can't stop by the restaurant. The cook in Low Valley gives away food to vagrants, but he said no one came. So if the Ute ate there, he paid for his food. Every brigand that's come through here has to steal their food, and most resort to poaching instead of trying to steal from a house. Maybe he still had food on him when he crossed that town? Marlowe fled back to the coyote's position. He didn't have any meat paper. What's that? It's the paper vagrant used to wrap their meat in. It's the stuff processing store uses. I don't know the real name, but that's what vagrants call it. One side has a waxy coating to keep the blood from dripping out. Every vagrant Gromlik ever threw in a cage had some. I don't remember the Komodo dragon having anything that looked like that. She was found behind here. That might have been on the ground. Jelly and Taran would have picked it up and thrown it out, not knowing it was anything more than trash. Tremor's eyes widened. I did see that when I would look through that where she slept. I didn't think anything of it since she was sleeping by the trash. Marlowe nodded. Once we're done here, I want to talk to the coyote again. I'm curious as to how he's going to explain it. He looked at his mostly untouched food. He thought about only eating the meat and enduring Jilly's glaring and growling, but then he realized he'd be going to the enforcer's office. That meant Bannerick, which maybe he would get sick from all the green there. With a smile, Marlot dug into his food. Marlot ignored the link as he walked through the office. He ignored him calling for Marlot to stop. The door to the cage was open, so Marlot stepped through, coming to a stop when Bannerick grabbed his arm. What do you think you're doing? The lynx demanded. Take your hand off me, Bannerick, unless you want to lose it. The enforcer snarled, and Marlot bared his teeth with a growl. Bared his teeth in a growl. Really? Trembor sighed. Are you two going to behave like cubs? I expect something more professional from an enforcer, and I know you're capable of better, Marlot. Marlot wrenched his arm out of the lynx's grip. Don't expect me to apologize. I wouldn't want one from a runaway like you. Marlot looked in the cages, but only the Komodo dragon was present. Where's the coyote? I need to question him. I let him go last night. Marlot couldn't find the words for a moment. You what? He's just a vagrant. It isn't like he committed a crime. Marlot glared at him. And you know that? How? Come on. Even you have to admit a skinny male like that couldn't have taken on Naego. The bear would have crushed him. That isn't how this works, Trevor began, only to be cut off by the lynx. Shut up, lion. This doesn't involve you. Marlot got in Bannerick's face. Don't take that tone with him, he growled. I gave instruction not to release him until I said so. Are you going to tell me Naria didn't pass it along? I told him, the servant blurted out. Marlot's head snapped in her direction. He hadn't noticed her behind her desk, and she made herself smaller as Bannerick glared at her. Marlot poked the lynx in the chest with a club, barely stopping himself from drawing blood. So you knew I wasn't done with him, and you still let him go? Bannerick batted the hand away. I don't take orders from you. I'm in charge here. If I say someone's time in the cage is done, then it's done. If you aren't happy with how I run things, go back to the city where you fit in so well. Marlot's hands clenched into fists. You think I want to be here? I hate you in this place. Bannerick took a step back and Marlot followed him. You think I have any good memories here? This place took everything I had, and you and your fucking grandfather blackmailed me into coming back here. You better get it through that thick skull of yours that this is my case. I'm in charge, not you. If you're not happy about it, go complain to Arleon. Bannerick pushed Marlot back. He was stronger than he'd expected, and he staggered back 2 steps. And he staggered. You know what? Marlot push Marlot. He was stronger than he expected, and he staggered back 2 steps. Marlot raised his arm, hand open, claws out, and he stepped to the lynx. A hand caught his arm before he brought it down. Don't, his lion said. I don't care how low his tax is. He isn't worth the expenditure. He deserves it, Marlot growled. His eyes were fixed on the lynx, who still glared back. I don't doubt it, but eating him isn't going to get us out of here any faster, and from what you told me, I don't think his family is going to care you paid his tax, or they're going to come after you. Yeah, the lynx said. I'm not just some farmer you can slash. I'm important. Marlot growled again and tried to take another step. Trembor looked at the lynx. If you don't shut up, I'm the one who's going to eat you. He pulled Marlot away. After a few steps, Marlot pulled his arm out of the lion's grip and stormed out. You better keep it under control, Bannerick yelled, or maybe I'll be the one eating him. Trembor ran past him and placed a hand on the driver's side door, waiting. Marlot glared at the lion, but he unlocked the car and sat on the passenger side. He was still growling when the car started moving. He'd love to see the lynx try to take him on. It would be so easy to rip him limb from limb, so satisfying to take his anger out on one of them. He'd cut out his heart and eat it right there. He could imagine the feeling of the blood running down his chin, the taste of the meat as he crushed that tiny little heart between his teeth. One of these days he was going to do it. The cost be damned. The door closing forced him out of his reverie. He'd been so focused on what he would do to that lynx, he hadn't noticed any of the drive. He got out and followed his lion into their room, slamming the door behind him, making the slates of the flying fly up and fall back in place. I'm going to kill him, Marlot growled, stepping by his lion. Trembor wrapped his arm around him and forced him to stop. We're going to be done with this in a few days. We're going to leave this place and never come back. You have my word on it. Buried his muzzle into the fur on the back of Marlot's neck. Trem, not now. Marlot snapped. We need to work. The lion nuzzled his neck, then moved up to whisper in his ear. You won't be able to focus on that in your current state. He licked the ear's edge, and Marlot shivered. You need to relax. We can get back to it in the morning. The rest of the day is going to be just for us. Trembor pulled Marlot's jacket off while licking the ear. Then he unbuttoned his shirt and let that fall to the floor. He nibbled the side of Marlot's neck, drawing a sigh out of him. Trembor turned him and pushed him onto the bed, then climbed on after him, running his hand through his black chest fur. I love you, Mart. Remember that when this place drives you crazy. We'll go back home. We'll share our home soon. You aren't alone anymore. Marlot reached up and unbuttoned his lion's shirt. I know. His thought caught for a moment. I love you too. Trembor's smile brightened the room. Marlot wanted to be able to say it with ease, without any hesitation, and he was getting there ever so slowly. Looking into his lion's golden eyes helped him feel confident. He pulled his head close and licked his muzzle before kissing him. See, that was a rule for me. Kissing doesn't exist in this world. You know what? Yeah. Trevor moaned and began moving on top of him. Marlot could feel their hardness rubbing together through their pants. Suddenly, he didn't want anything between them. He hurried to undo the lion's pants, his fingers fumbling at the buttons in his rush. Trevor got the message and moved off him so they could both undress. When they were back on the bed, limbs intertwined, nuzzling and nipping at each other, impatient, Marlot reached down between them and squeezed, making Trevor grunt. I need you, Marlot whispered before Trevor got off him only long enough to get the lubricant, and then he was seated back between his legs. He prepared Marlot, then they both moaned as he entered him. Trevor made love to him, slowly, then fast. They rested for a while, then Marlot made love to him. By the time they finally slept, the sun had set. His lion held him, and for a while longer, Marlot didn't worry about anything. And this concludes chapter 14 of A Familiar Death. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the rest of the story, as well as the others in the series, they are available on all major e-retailer. If you want to support me, that's on my Patreon, where you can get access to just about everything I've written. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the notes. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.